basically give you the rules of how this evening will progress. First of all, this is a meeting of the District 9 Neighborhood Alliance, as I said. That means if you're a member, I will recognize you. If you are not a member, you're a guest. I will try to recognize everyone when we get to the Q&A, and everyone will take their turn. But if you're not a member, I may not recognize you, or I may shut you down. And that is our right. This is not a public meeting, just so everyone understands that. But you are a guest. You're certainly welcome. And I'm sure, I don't think I've ever really turned anybody off unless they were getting obnoxious. Then I will. That said, the way we will start the meeting is each candidate, and these are set up the way they will appear on the ballot, alphabetically, it turns out, and that's the way we'll start off. Each candidate will have 5 minutes. If they don't have to take the entire 5 minutes, but they'll have 5 minutes. I've got a handy dandy little kitchen timer, and it goes beep, 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 and the time is up. And about 30 seconds out, I will raise my hand, and I'm sitting right in front of you, so you should be able to see me. And that means if you're not done, start winding it up. I will cut you off at 5 minutes, so if you have a chance to answer questions later. Then we will have a Q&A. During the Q&A, raise your hand. I will go around the room as much as possible and try to be equal and give everybody a chance. But when you ask your question, please make it a question. Don't get up and give your speech, your whatever. Just ask a question. You can ask your question for the panel, in which case we'll start, as I said, alphabetically and go down this way with a 5-minute introduction. Then I will go Q&A back and forth if it's a question for the panel. If it's a question for the individual panel member, please specify this question is for Nicholas or this question is for John, and they will then answer it. It will not be a debate, so I do not expect, nor do I wish, to have you answer or respond to someone else's comment. Give your position, not compete with them.
Don't beat them up.
Yeah, exactly. Any questions? All right, we'll get started then. And as I said before, we will go in order of the ballot, which is Nicholas, John, Richard, and then Patrick. And you'll have 5 minutes. If you don't have, you can remain seated, stand, it's up to you.
Okay.
If you would rather have a podium, I could bring a podium over.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
So my name is Nicholas Balderas. I am a native here of San Antonio, raised out in the hill country. I've been working since I was 16 years old, started off as a bagger with my local HEB, and now I currently work at their corporate office as a software developer. I'm running for city council because I believe that in order for us to face the challenges of tomorrow and to meet them at the level which they'll meet us, which is a great veracity, that it's going to require to do things differently than what we have been doing. I am somebody who believes that our local government should work for us, the people, that relationship between your elected official and the constituents should be pure in the sense that no third party gets involved in that relationship and no outside influence will be able to sway me from the voice and concerns that you have. I don't come from a background of being in politics or being affiliated with any group or organization. I'm just an average Joe who felt the calling and desire to serve my community. I also believe that our city faces many challenges. One of them being we have an increase in population expected by 2040 to be an increase of 1 million. And our response to that should be smart development rather than unchecked, unplanned development. This area, and it's continuing up north of 281, we're experiencing and witnessing this continuation of sprawl, and our response to that as a city has been expanding the roads. While it's important to make sure that people are commuting around town safely, that continuation and that kind of same mindset is not the answer, and that's not going to be our vision. That's not my vision for the city of San Antonio. We need to start thinking, how do we encourage development that is that promotes health and safety, where people can walk and have the option to leave the car at home. That's something that I'm very passionate about, is addressing sprawl, because I think there are so many adjunct issues that come from that: health, safety, transportation, infrastructure, environment. All of those are concerns and something that I wanted to address, and I need your help in addressing as the city moves forward. But that's my main issue. I have a heart for people. I think working with HEB, I've really adopted a service mentality. I've worked as a front-end manager, a cashier, and a pharmacy technician, and I've always have had a pleasure in serving the community and the people that I've had the privilege of engaging with, working with HEB. I have a very curious mind. I'm a software developer. I like to go out and solve problems, research things, to come to the best conclusions. I like to engage with other community members to hear what they have to say and their responses, and work together to solve the problems that we're going to ultimately face together. And ultimately, I have the vision for what I would like San Antonio to be: a city where we are self-sustaining, self-sufficient, we encourage inclusivity, and we embrace diversity amongst us as a community. So I appreciate the District 9 Neighborhood Alliance for having me today and having us and giving us the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
John?
Thank you, Art, and thank everybody for coming out today. I really appreciate what the District 9 Neighborhood Alliance means in this community. I know it helps bring together leaders from a lot of the various neighborhoods around the community to share their thoughts and their ideas and their concerns. And I think that this is a great forum for you to be here tonight. And again, thank you very much, Art, for putting this together. For those of you who don't know me, again, my name is John Courage, and I'm your neighbor on the City Council. I've been very pleased and proud and honored to serve as your councilman for the last 20 months. And I would like to be able to continue serving for the next 2 years. Now, those of you who do know what I've been doing understand that I've been very inclusive as your city councilman by bringing more and more people together to be part of the overall thought process and decision-making process that goes on at City Hall. I didn't believe when I was elected that I should come to the City Council with an agenda of what I want to do. I wanted to know what you and what your neighbors wanted to do. So when I was campaigning at the beginning of my campaign, I and people who were helping me didn't ask anybody to vote for me. We simply asked, what are your concerns? What are the problems that you have in the neighborhood? What do you think needs to be done to improve your community? What can your council do for you at City Hall? And that's always been the way I have tried to operate as your city council person. Many of you seen me not just here, but you've seen me at your neighborhood association meetings. Or if I haven't been able to attend, you've seen my staff people at your neighborhood association meetings. Again, listening, trying to be responsive to the concerns that people have. I just consider myself my advocate for you at City Hall. You know, I think that a city council person has about 3 or 4 special things they should be working on. And the first thing is that we are your advocates for whatever your problems or concerns are. That's why we need to be listening to you, and we need to go to City Hall and advocate for those. But also, you know, it's the City Council that sets the policy and the direction that the city should be proceeding in. Now, just because a councilman sets policy as a group, it doesn't mean we order anybody around. We don't have that authority. We set policy. But part of that setting that policy is asking questions. Asking questions at City Hall as to why we need to do this or why we can't do that or how this can be done, so that we hopefully can come to an understanding of how we can do the improvements and the things that people expect in their community. But also, I'm a watchdog. It's up to me to hold the city accountable to you, so that as things are done in your name and as I act in your name, you know that I'm watching to make sure we take care of your financial interests, and your personal interests in your neighborhood. And so accountability is an important job that I think every councilman has. I happen to be the chairman of our accountability and auditing committee for the city, so I take that very seriously. So those are some of the goals that I have, the tasks that I'm responsible for as your city council person. But the most important one, I believe, is inclusivity and making sure that your voice is heard, that we meet those concerns and those needs that you have, and that we're there for you as much as we can be to help you understand what are the things we can do, when can we do them, and sometimes what are the things that we really can't get to. Sometimes people ask us to do things that are your congressman's responsibility or your state legislator's responsibility. And so educating people about that is also part of my responsibility. I would like to continue serving you as your city councilman, but that's going to be your decision. If you feel anybody up here is better equipped, prepared, and suited to go ahead and represent you on city council, then vote for them. But I hope you believe I'm the one doing the job that you'd like to consider doing that in the future. Thank you.
Richard, excuse me. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to start with a poem. Bird songs bring relief to my longing. I am as ecstatic as they are, with nothing to say, rooming. I have something to say. My name is Richard Reza Versace. I was born in Iran. My mother was Persian. My father was Italian. He came to Iran to work for money because they were broke in Italy. So I know all about being broke. In 1980, I fled the country to get away from the war, otherwise I wouldn't be here. So in a way I'm blessed, but in a way I'm not, because I lost a lot of family, a lot of best friends, a lot of friends I know all about war. So I have several degrees and several licenses. That's all I've been doing to keep my mind busy. I get another license. I get another degree. I've trained many celebrities. I've trained from 5-year-old to President Bush, the senior. You like my accent. What I'm good at, what my heart is in, is fitness and nutrition. I'm a gold medalist wrestler, power lifter, bodybuilder, all that. But what I want to do, San Antonio is ranked probably, I'd say, ranked number 2 fattest city in the world. What I want to do, what I'm really good at, is nutrition and herbalist. I want to create a webinar where I can cook personally for people that real good organic food and will less cost than $2, less than McDonald's. And disease-free, hormone-free, organic, number 1. Number 2, I want to create a webinar to teach San Antonio to do every 10 minutes to get up, like sort of like China, and do very, very simple exercises like Tai Chi, no equipment needed. Those are the number 1 priority for me, what I'm good at. Then the traffic, I like to, I have friends all over the world. So like bullet train, subway train, getting here, that's why I'm late. You know, the Google Maps sometimes even lie to you. I swear to God, I went around like 10 times and keep looking. So the Google Map is not to be trusted sometimes.
It changes all the time with 281.
Yeah, so, and
But you guys are here.
I never give up, that's, so. One of my mentors, Sandra Cisneros, one time I was going to practice as a motivational speaker, and I gave her the note, and I was looking, she goes, what are you doing? I said, I'm looking at my notes. She goes, no, put it down. You're good. Speak from heart. Speaking from the heart is I've always loved to help my community. Sometime in the middle of the night, I just go help the homeless downtown. I live in an apartment still. As Bernie Sanders says, if you look at my income tax, it's very boring. I always give. That's what I do. So I want to create these shelter areas, all on voluntary basis for homelessness. And talk to the psychologists. I sit down.
No, you have 30 seconds.
Wrap it up.
Yeah.
Wrap it up, I take it. Okay. And help, there's a mental issue, and bring these psychologists, psychiatrists, have a master's degree, help with them to, just help with them, be there for them. So I have a lot of things to do.
Okay, thank you. Patrick.
Well, howdy. Howdy. My name is Patrick Von Dohlen. I'm City Council candidate for District 9. I'm the voice of common sense. And so I come to you tonight. I've frequented these meetings of District 9 Neighborhood Alliance, and to the good graces of Art and the committee, and have been an active member of District 9 Neighborhood Alliance for several years. As a matter of fact, I've got my check for my membership renewal here. Don't let me get out of here without giving it to you. But I'm married for 22 years to a woman named Happy. She likes to claim that at A&M that everybody knew her as everybody knew me as her boyfriend, and now everybody knows her as my wife. And we've been blessed with 9 children so far. And thank you. I appreciate you doing that. And I'll tell you a little joke they gave me a little bit ago as I left the house there. But my business is one where I'm a partner in a financial planning firm. I'm a business owner, and like you, I came here out of concern for what's happening in District 9. So how many of you came here to elect any one of us? I don't to any one of you. How many of you came here because you're concerned about something in your neighborhood or the district? That's what we need to be concerned about. So my whole platform is based on a smaller government, lower taxes, and more freedom. Our current city council has gone way too far to the left. They're embracing things that are on a national level and bringing them down to a local level. Things like that need to be handled at those national and state levels that we need to cooperate with. When I took the oath to run for this office, I took an oath to uphold the Constitution of Texas and the Constitution of the United States of America. And upon election, I'll do that again, where I take that same oath, similar to upholding the Constitution of Texas and the Constitution of the United States of America. I fully intend to do that. So when City Council makes decisions that ostracize a great segment of society, like banning Chick-fil-A from the airport, or saying no behind closed doors to a political national convention, when we spent millions upon millions of dollars to renovate the Henry B. Gonzalez Convention Center, we need to be with open arms to any legitimate convention. Because we've invested lots of taxpayer money into the city, into a convention center that we need to have open arms, welcoming any type of convention, as long as it's legitimate, to come and benefit the city, to bring in tourism dollars, and to benefit the taxpayers. So one of the things we do as a financial planning firm, and as a small business owner, we charge a flat fee to our clients, and we bring them financial science. And I intend to do that at City Council. I intend to bring financial science to City Council. So one of the things we did in my firm, and my business partner back over here, and we put together a little financial snapshot of the city of San Antonio. And one of the greatest impediments we have to the city achieving its goal of basic services and being excellent at it is debt. Our city is running about $5.6 billion in debt. Our revenue has been fairly stagnant, with a little over $2 billion in revenue each year, and our liabilities continue to grow. If you see here, this blue line here is total revenue. The red line is total liabilities, and the gray line is total assets. So I'm going to walk over here, and at the same time deliver my check. And but I want you to be able to see that this chart shows something very important. That in 1984, liabilities crossed total revenue
Excuse me, Pat.
and exceeded them. Well, that changed the city of San Antonio. The city charter allows for every 5 years to have a bond election. And we've had one, 2017, 2012, and 2007. The plans are already in the works to have one for the next time around, so 2022, and then 2027. Those plans are already in the works to have those. Well, so in essence, to represent you, we need to make sure that we keep our city budget in check, to make sure that we use these good times to pay down some of our debt. Because we can't pay down some of our debt. We can't fulfill basic city services. We can't take care of our police and fire, make sure we have more police on the street to have a greater public safety, so that you have a greater quality of life. So one of the things that we want to make sure we do is, in having a smaller government and lower taxes and more freedom, is if we can't have a higher quality of life, you feel captive to your home because you feel unsafe. That's not the city that you want to live in. So I appreciate you being here, because that's the kind of city we want to have, is one that we have a higher quality of life. So I appreciate your attention. You can find out more information right now at votepatrick.org or Vote Patrick SA on social media. Thank you.
All right.
We need to charge him for 1 minute.
No, he ended it right on time. I didn't have to hook him up. The way we're going to do, as I mentioned earlier, the Q&A is raise your hand. I'll try to go around the room. Please, though, ask a question. And ask a question either of the panel or of an individual member. And if you're addressing it to the panel, just say this is for everyone. If it's for John or Patrick or whoever, specify that. So, anybody have a question to kick us off? Go ahead.
Yes, sir. My name is Augie McLam. I usually don't come to these meetings. Retired Army, been in San Antonio since 2006. I love the city. In 2012, Floyd Lee Corkins visited the Family Research Council in Washington, D.C. In his backpack, he had 100 rounds of ammunition and 15 Chick-fil-A sandwiches. His intent was to shoot as many...
Remember what I asked at the beginning, please
I will,
ask
sir.
the question.
The question is, the city council today is using the same vitriolic, anti-Christian, bigoted speech that this killer is using. Same exact speech. Can we go through the panel and each of you commit today to stop using that same bigoted speech that Manny Pelaez and Robert C. Trevino have been using? Can each of you commit to stop using that anti-Christian, bigoted speech tonight?
I would ask that we do not have questions like this again. I said we would open it for questions. This is a very vitriolic question in itself. I will post it to the panel, and I will ask them, starting with Patrick, if you'll come down this way and answer it. But I do not wish to hear any more of the questions like this. Thank you.
I'm happy to answer your question. How long do we have for?
2 minutes.
That's okay. Very good. Well, I appreciate you asking the question, because it is an important question, and how we phrase it and how we deal with people is important. But every person in the city of San Antonio deserves respect and protection as a human being. And for the city of San Antonio to take a stance based on a few people, to take a stance against the heritage of this very city, which is a Christian heritage, and it was established that way on the banks of the San Antonio River. And it grew into in 1691, and then it became a city in 1718. And we're celebrating our 300 years. Well, that 300 years of heritage is really based on a Christian heritage, Judeo-Christian heritage. And so we should do nothing like that to discriminate against anyone, particularly a segment of society that is so prevalent. And but every faith tradition deserves to have a seat at the table and not be banned. And so what the city council did on Thursday of last week in banning Chick-fil-A because of the religious beliefs of an owner of the business is unacceptable. It's very akin to the city of San Antonio making a decision that where behind closed doors with a lack of transparency, mind you, about the Republican National Convention, So as I said before, and I addressed this in my opening remarks, is that we should be open to business.
So
The city
you
of San
answered
Antonio,
the question, Patrick.
the city of San Antonio is putting a signal out that says we're not open for business. It's time to turn that sign around. We are open for business and the respect of each and every individual, and certainly out of respect for religions. Thank you.
I've served, is my turn?
Yes.
I've served in the military Green Beret Special Forces. First of all, I would love to see a universal background check. If you look at the connotation of this content is mentally diseased person, this person is. Regardless of religion, bringing a machine gun with Chick-fil-A, it needs psychological evaluation. So that's just a particular isolated incident, but in general, we do have issues all over the United States, just not in the United States. It just happened in New Zealand with the Muslim community. So we need education. We need awareness at universal level. Has nothing to do with, I don't think, with Chick-fil-A or Christianity or this particular person was mentally ill. And there are flags that we're not responding at the childhood to this. You know, I'm quite familiar with all these type of cases. I've seen it all. I've seen my best friend blown up right there. So he's mentally diseased. We need universal background check. We don't need to have machine guns at the civilian level. And I always say all we need is love.
John?
Thank you. First of all, let me thank you for your service. I, as you, served in the military.
So did I.
And at that time, I took an oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. And I think the First Amendment is the strongest part of our Constitution that we need to defend, and that's the freedom of religion. And I certainly would always defend that as a member of the City Council. As a member of the City Council, I again took an oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution, the laws of the state of Texas, and the ordinances and the laws that we pass here in San Antonio. And I certainly will continue to do that if you choose to let me continue serving you. But I will say that I did not agree with my fellow council people on the decision that they chose to vote to ban Chick-fil-A. I voted against that. I did not think that that was a proper decision. I do not want to see the city enter into culture wars or social issue wars and mix those kinds of things when we're talking about businesses wanting to come to San Antonio and provide services to us. And so I thought that was a bad choice by the council, but I'm only one vote. Hopefully, a lot of us have learned that mistake, because obviously many people are hearing from all of the community that they didn't appreciate that decision, and I don't as well. But you can always count on me to defend your rights and everybody's rights under the First Amendment to their freedom of religion.
Nicholas?
So I want to say thank you for your service. My father was in the military, and so is my partner. And speaking of that, you know, I am gay, and I disagree with the city council's decision. I think that it is not my place to say or to discredit or exclude Chick-fil-A from being a part of airport, or being a vendor at the airport. I think this comes down to, you know, while many would look at me or think like, you know, well, there's somebody who's part of the community that was spoken to at the city council meeting, and that person would most likely maybe advocate for banning Chick-fil-A. I disagree, and I think that it was a bad or a wrong decision that city council made. You know, I think this comes down to, you know, people will disagree with my lifestyle, and they'll disagree with the choices that are who I am as a person, and they'll disagree with that. It's not my place to force my agenda or my ideology on them, and I believe it's not their place to force it on me too. You know, we are all human beings. None of us really know, you know, we're all trying to figure it out as we go on and go about our lives. But I think it comes down to the principle that, you know, we are in a society together. We are protected under the same Constitution. My rights are as equal as your rights or anyone else's rights. But when it comes to the issue of Chick-fil-A and the City Council's decision, I think it was a bad decision by City Council.
Very good, thank you. Next question.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Again, please.
I will. I've got like a sentence and then a question. Recently, City Council passed the Paid Sick Leave Initiative, clearly stating the government, not the free market, should mandate what businesses do. The government, not businesses, mandate what businesses do. Do you agree or disagree with that decision?
Does everyone understand what? Okay.
For the panel.
Can you explain a little more?
For the panel.
Can you explain your question just a little
So
bit?
the paid sick leave, the city council passed that they think that the government's place was to tell businesses they ought to make sure that every worker had paid sick leave. They didn't leave it to the market or to the businesses or to competition. They mandated that that should happen. Do you agree that the government should mandate that or should not mandate that?
And this is for the panel.
This is for the panel.
Okay, so Nicholas will start reading this one.
Sure. So I disagree with that decision. I think the market should drive that decision. This kind of goes to if you were a small business owner and you only have 2 employees working underneath you, you know, at this point now you're responsible for paying their sick leave and you know the costs that are associated with it. So I disagree with the decision. I don't think it's the government's place to dictate that. I think it should be up to the market and up to the company.
Thank you. John?
The council was faced with a decision that we did not bring before ourselves. We did not go out and say we wanted to initiate a paid sick leave policy. That was initiated by 144,000 people who lived in the city of San Antonio or in Bexar County, and they brought it forward to us. So the city had only 2 choices: allow it to go on a ballot to be voted by the entire city, or for the city to go ahead and decide, we'll go ahead and initiate that as an ordinance. Now, most people might say, well, why didn't you just let the people vote on it? Well, because we knew that if we initiated it as a city ordinance, exactly the way it was worded, then we would be able to go ahead in 6 months and revisit that ordinance and make changes to it that we think could improve it. But if it went on the ballot and it was approved by the voters, the city council could never change it, and it would become permanent ordinance in the city of San Antonio. We decided that we would go ahead and pass it as an ordinance, and that way we can revisit it, and at the time it was passed, we put word out to the business community that we want more input. We want to understand what your concerns are about paid sick leave. But I'll tell you this, I don't personally believe that anyone should lose their job or not be able to be paid because they're sick, or their child is sick, or they have an illness in their family that they need to take care of. And I don't want any sick person coming to work and making me sick or the people around me sick. So I think it's the kind of policy we need to give a lot more consideration to and arrive at an understanding that we all can live with. And so I think that that's going to be the future of that policy.
Well, as we're speaking now, the client is like my father. His wife became Alzheimer's disease throughout the 3 years that I was working with both of them. I am the therapist. So just 2 weeks ago, we took her to Alzheimer's home right here for $8,000 a month. So as far as this question, again, is isolated question, It's up to the family and the doctor. So he's forced to sell his house, they live in Monte Vista, to afford $8,000 a month because he doesn't want to go to his investment. He said, his words, if he goes to his investment, then the government wants every dollar you take. He educates me about finance, how the tax system works. Our insurance companies are corrupted. They're meaningless to me. And as far as these paid sick, whatever, they don't really pay. They just say, well, how much is your co-pay, whatever. So we needed a lot of work. Our insurance company is no good. Not all of them, but most of them that I know. I was recently had a little cold and they gave me a shot of steroids. I went to visit a Texas medical clinic twice. The doctor was here sometime at HEB, at my local HEB. And, hey, how are you? She always asks me about nutrition question, but she asked me for about 10 to 15 seconds, yeah, you have a flu-like symptom, but it's not flu, run the test, that was $400. What's gonna insurance, by the time you do the paperwork and all that, you end up paying for it, and you get busy with life.
It's a great question, and much like the question on Chick-fil-A, decisions the city council is making these days are going to cost taxpayers a lot more money. That was one of the most frightening days I've seen down at city council when this was passed, because it's the same day that city council voted to put the three propositions that the firemen had put forward and to vote them and put them on the ballot. In that particular vote, as I was there listening to the deliberations on the mandatory paid sick leave, and I heard arguments made by city councilmen, and to the extent that, well, we know this violates the Texas Constitution. We know that the Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, excuse me, that Attorney General Ken Paxton has filed a lawsuit against the city of San Antonio, city of Austin, and already sent a warning letter, sent a letter of communication that he has indeed filed a lawsuit against the city of Austin, and that San Antonio will be in jeopardy of the Texas Constitution as well. And in hearing these arguments, and then to hear the same argument that says, well, but it feels good, and this is a great thing to do to help people, and then to make the decision instead of putting it on the ballot when the three propositions were put on the ballot for a charter charter changes, which, by the way, if you don't know, the city charter allows for charter changes every 2 years. And so we won't be able to have another charter change until November 6th of 2020. And because those two of the three were passed last time. And so instead of making the decision to put it on the ballot to fulfill the people, which I understand the rationale, the rationale was to go and vote for it and pass it and violate Texas Constitution. Well, there was a third option, which would have been to table it until this lawsuit with the state of Texas and Ken Paxton was pursuing Austin, because the decision that was made by city council costs you more money. That's what I mean when we're talking about smaller government, lower taxes and more freedom. This costs us tax money. So, and for your representatives, so no, I would not vote, I'm not in favor of it.
Next question. Don Patterson, question.
And I'm a little bit partisan, sorry.
I know.
Okay, I'm John's wife, in case anybody doesn't know. But I do want to ask each one of you gentlemen, looks like everybody has another job and what you're doing, or several. And I'm wondering, and 9 kids, and I'm wondering, how would you be able to handle the demands of the city council position? It is a very, very demanding, time-consuming job, and so I'm kind of interested in knowing how you plan to be able to handle that. Are you going to quit your job so you can do it full-time? You do get paid $45,000 a year to do it, and you know people can get along on that for a few years. So I'm just wondering. Thank you.
Patrick, we'll start with you.
It's a great question. My wife has had a similar concern. Well, I would start by saying public service has been a part of my life since I could walk. My dad was a state rep for 14 years in the 70s and 80s, and I've been knocking the doors, shaking hands since then, and the best part of that is getting to work with people and to help people. And so in doing that, I've got the full support of my wife, and she's an incredible lady. Her name's Happy, and most of the time she is. She's also a Churchill graduate, class of '88, and so she's very comfortable in our surroundings and in our living situation, and I have a great business partner and a great staff that help, and so I've spent a lot of time in my whole lifetime with public service. This should be a change in the type of public service that I already carve out and allow for that as we continue to operate. But no, I will not give up my job. And as a partner in a financial planning firm, we'll continue to do that. And being a self-employed individual, a business owner, we have to make amends and deal with that on a regular basis and interruptions to business. And we don't make money until we've taken care of our clients. And in this case, I'll be taking care of citizens of District 9 and look forward to doing so. Thank you very much for the question.
Thank you, Patrick.
Well, the old saying is that if you love what you do, you don't work. Mother Teresa said that. Okay, first of all, I'm a therapist. I go to people's home and I work with, I move them. You know, sometimes they're lazy, they don't want to move. They're not feeling good. I gotta make them move. I'm athletic, I'm a world champion. Number one. Number two, I will quit my job. What I want to do, what Rock said, I want to design every house. If you have a little room right there, I want to turn that to a gym. No equipment needed. You know, we just talked about tax and traffic. I'm sick about it. There's not a whole lot you can do. The government tells you what you got to pay. What are you going to do? Nothing you can do. What I can do, I was a long time ago city manager for Mr. Gaddy's. I don't know if you all remember Mr. Gaddy's. I started as a dishwasher, like my friend right here, then became a busboy, manager, city manager, then was going to be the CEO. If something happened, the family took over and they promoted their own family. 2-minute warning, you gotta get me.
2 minutes goes quick.
I have to say, I did not know my wife was going to ask that question. Before becoming your city councilman, I was a teacher for 27 years. As a matter of fact, before I was elected, I had told my wife during the school year, this is going to be my last year, I'm going to retire. And so that was my expectation until our former council person decided not to run for re-election. And my wife and my friends who knew I always wanted to do and have done community service for many, many years encouraged me to run. But I will tell you that I knew it was going to be a full-time commitment for me. I knew I was going to give up teaching and that I was going to put all my effort and all my energy into being a city council person. But I'll tell you, I've learned a lot more since I've been on that council as to what that means. I've hired 7 other people to work for me, for you, at my city council office, because it takes that much of a commitment of time and talent in order to go ahead and be there for you and your neighbors and all of our communities to ensure that we understand your problems, that we research what the answers are, that we come up with the best solutions that we can, and that we help you put them in place. You can't do this part-time. I'm sorry. And I would encourage anybody who is going to run to go ahead and set aside that other commitment, because you are my full-time job.
All right.
I've always prided myself with working for my company HEB for as long as I have, for 8 years, since I was 16. I also recently got my real estate license because I have, or had, personal goals to financially be successful. but I put my real estate on hold, and I would quit my job in order to pursue a position on city council and to serve my community. I would do what I think is the only option in life, which is to serve others rather than chase the paycheck. I think I realized that at 24, and it would be an honor to have that privilege.
Thank you. Sweet.
I have.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Betty.
Can I pose the question to just two people, or if I do?
If it's more than one, you probably ought to do it now.
Okay. Recently, the city passed the $1 million city mitigation fund. So my question would be to the councilman and then to the financial guy over here. To the councilman, would you explain why that was important to do a $1 million giveaway? Just to understand that in particular, because you're giving money to those rents that went up along the San Pedro Creek redevelopment, which should have just been a redevelopment of a drainage ditch. So I'm curious on why you voted that way, and I was curious, and I know you all answered, but I am curious from the financial end of it, how you see that that would be a detriment because we're adding $1 million more to get $1 million more out of our city coffers.
Would you like me to answer it first?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Well, you might be able to give a better background than I did.
Well, Patty, let me say I disagree with your terminology. It's not a giveaway. There is money that's going to be set aside in the budget. It is $1 million, and it's for displacement assistance. And I'll tell you why I voted for it. There have been several incidences that have occurred in the city recently that I felt justified the city taking a greater role in helping people who are displaced. These situations were people who were displaced not because of their own doing. One of them took place in District 8. There was a mobile home park, and it was declared unsafe and unfit for human habitation by the city because the owner of the park was not keeping up all of the health codes that were needed. And all of those people who were living over there, not all, most of them were on fixed income. They had nowhere else to go, but the city simply could not let them live there any longer. It was not safe and not healthy. And so the city had to go ahead and help those people move. And if you're on a fixed income and you don't have money, how are you going to do it? That was one example that I thought showed the city taking the right step. Another one, there was an apartment complex in District 10. 50-unit apartment complex, 50 families living there. They've been living there for years and years. They pay their bill every month. Part of their bill was their utility bill. The owner of the apartment complex collected that money every month and did not pay the utility bill. Now, it happened more than once. The first time the city stepped in and they told him, we'll have to close your apartments if you don't pay the bill. He managed to come up with the money. A couple of years later, again, he still did not pay the utility bills for several months. There were thousands of dollars behind. They were shutting off the utilities for the people who were living there. And the city said, you need to pay that bill. And they said, I won't, or I can't. And so we had to help those people move to find a decent place to live. And it wasn't their fault. Those are a couple of examples. There's another one that I don't have all the details right now. But I think those justify the city stepping in and helping our citizens, people who live in the community, who through no fault of their own are being displaced. And I think that we have an obligation to help people in those situations. That's why I voted for it.
Okay. You want to ask Patrick now?
Yeah, can I do that?
Yes, go
Okay.
ahead.
So you want me to go?
Yeah.
Patty, thank you for the question. This goes into a fundamental difference of beliefs in my philosophy that while we are a city that is built on a Christian heritage and we care for people, at the same time, there's a principle called subsidiarity where you have the lowest form of people closest to those people in need are the best people to help them. And that doesn't necessarily mean the government. And it could be their religious community, it could be their neighbors, it could be their family, it could be their friends, and we work up that chain. In large part, this mitigation that was passed is a response to a program called CHIPS, and right? We're talking about the same program. CHIPS was a program where tax abatements were given to downtown developers in those abatements. And so the argument was made by the people that were promoting the mitigation was that we gave all these tax abatements away to all these large corporations that don't need help. They could come in and develop in San Antonio. And then sometimes that might be the case because we shouldn't be just giving away tax abatements just to give them away, but for warranted ones. And that where somebody's not going to develop anyway in the city of San Antonio. But in this case, so the response was going to go down there and ask for help for displacement. And for people that have no fault of their own, some of these cases people have already paid off their houses and they can't afford real estate taxes. Well, by no fault of their own, we have a responsibility as a city government to help people by lowering taxes as well. The city government had an opportunity to lower people's real estate taxes, not by very much, but by a percentage of what the city charges, and they chose not to do so. City council voted not for a tax decrease. And I would be advocating for that, because those issues where tax mitigation is put in place to help someone, we have to really analyze who's the best service to do it. So to answer your question directly, Patty, is $1 million in the big scheme of things, and in a budget over $2 billion like ours is not a huge amount, but every $1 million adds up.
Thank you, Pat.
I'd like to say something.
Go ahead.
Many years ago, I was training Mary Alice Cisneros for 10 years as a District 1 city manager. She was one of my mentors. And one of the things sort of stayed with me, she used to say, the city is broke. What I want to do, I ask a lot of questions, being an immigrant. I want to know where that $1 million come from. I want to know how much interest we're paying on that $1 million. And I've been late on my whatever telephone bill or electricity bill by accident, misplacing my bills. I get charged next time and notified. So if these people didn't pay their bills for that many months, I would question that.
Douglas, you can respond or not. It's up to you.
I would have to look more at the issue, I think, in order for me to give a well-informed answer. But I think we owe it to our community and our city to help those, especially if they don't have the means to do so, or are put in positions where they're forced to make decisions that they may not be able to make the decision that's right for them or for their families. But that being said, I think it's important to make sure that we're enacting or making those decisions in a responsible way.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Anna Napolitano, and I am a resident of District 9, so thank you for letting me ask a question. I'm also Patrick's campaign manager. And I would like to address the Green Deal that will be put before the City Council this year. Could you please talk about the Green Deal and tell us whether you are for or against it?
Is this for the panel?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
And back to you again.
Another good place.
So I think addressing the environment is very important. We are facing the crisis of a changing climate, and doing what we can that's responsible to our city, promoting self-sustainability and being self-sufficient is important. We have the issue of the SALS, or the Vista Ridge Pipeline, that I disagree with, even though it's already gone through. I think we as a city need to start challenging ourselves and looking at resources available to us, and realize that in order for us to face the challenges of tomorrow, that we need to start thinking in a different way. We need to start looking at resources as scarce, and also looking at, what are the ways to kind of offset what we would have otherwise have just gone to a water resource that was 140 miles away. That will eventually affect that area. So going back to the Green New Deal, I support the city's investment in addressing the climate crisis moving forward.
Okay, I guess, and I'd like to clarify with the questioner. I don't know that there's any Green New Deal before the city.
It's probably the climate action and adaptation plan.
Yeah, I think that's what you're probably referring to.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay,
Okay.
just to clarify that. The Green
Yes.
New Deal is a national.
That's more of a national effort, yeah. The Climate Action and Adaptation Plan has been discussed quite a bit recently, and I'll tell you, I've looked at the plan, it's 84 pages, that the original draft that we've received as council. I did not go to many of those meetings, but some of my staff did, so they kind of filled me in as it went along. I want you to know that the way it's written today, I do not support that climate adaptation and action plan. And that's because I think that there is a misunderstanding that we have as a council and that the community has, that this plan is going to go ahead and put some kind of mandates on the community, or that it's a plan that doesn't have a price tag. And no one should support any kind of a plan like that for the city. And so I've told the director of the project, I've told other city council people, I've told city staff that I will support a plan that tells us how much is it going to cost, what are all the strategies that are outlined in this plan, what are the details behind those strategies, what are the priorities of those strategies, what are the timeline for implementing those strategies, and be assured that there are no mandates that are going to force you to buy an electric car or going to force your utility bills to go up 50 or 100%. We need to have a valid plan that will accomplish the things that we need to do to protect our children and our grandchildren from any disasters that may occur in our environment over the next 40 or 50 years. There's still a lot of talk about whether or not the environment is going in the wrong direction. I believe it certainly is. But I think that as a city, if we're going to have a plan, it has to be one that makes perfect sense and that's well thought out. Now, if we want to support this climate action and adaptation project as aspirational, which suggests to us what we need to research and what we need to find the cost on and what we need to set a priority for, I'm willing to say yes, let's go ahead and have that discussion and move that, and so that then the city can do the research and understanding of what all of the repercussions, the costs, the priorities should be as the plan unfolds over the future.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John.
Well, I'll tell you, we're gonna steal my turn. Green. Green is the fourth chakra in yoga system. It's the heart chakra. So go green means go with your heart. Lesson number one. Lesson number two, Mahatma Gandhi said, the community is like a body. If one part of the body hurts, the entire body hurts. Have you all experienced that? If you have a toothache, you can't do anything, particularly in the middle of the night. We had a tsunami like yesterday in Iran. I don't know if you all saw it, but it's all over the world. It's more often, it's chaotic. Our ocean, as nutritionists, I know exactly how blood works. Our ocean is becoming acidic. We're dumping all kind of stuff in our ocean, no regulation. Our water, tap water, is like acid to drink. This water is not even good. By the way, if you're all gonna drink, make sure it's spring water. Alkalinity is at 7.4. Scientifically, global warming is very true. It's happening. Fossil fuel. Personally, I do my laundry with hands, Zen-like. So we need to go back and just say, well, history repeats itself. It's very much so. I sweep with hands. I try to walk. I will walk to HEB. I carry. I have a Honda 4-cylinder. It's like goes 100 miles before I learned all that from my father. My father used to wash the cup and would save the water and would use the water to wash another cup. That's how I saw it culturally. So I'm all about, as an immigrant, we don't have any really family to call and, hey, I need $50. You're looking at it. So I'm the chef, I'm the nutritionist. I'll find out a long time ago, your food, let your food be your medicine.
Thank
You
you,
know?
Richard. Patrick?
Well, it's an important question because the city continues to take on national issues, as I mentioned in my opening statement. And as we talk about people not being able to pay their bills, their CPS or SALS bills, each of those entities has created welfare programs to help people who couldn't pay their bills. And so with mitigation that we just had in the question before, is there's mitigation there to help people who can't pay their bills. SALS and CPS, SALS and CPS have actually set up programs to help people pay their bills who can't. So the city stepped in and helped pay more bills. So it's a very dangerous road. So this is the SA Climate Ready, also known as the Climate Action Adaptation Plan. You're welcome to come look at it. I apologize, I didn't print correctly on this time. CPS has spent almost $400,000, between $300,000 and $400,000 on developing this high-level thinking, what I would call ideology. And this plan does call for the retrofitting of buildings, much like this hospital, to be carbon neutral by the year 2050. It also calls for carbon neutral vehicles, and it also calls for a certain amount of miles per vehicle that you can use. So what the plan is that in its current form, we were in this room a month ago, the District 9 Neighborhood Alliance meeting, when the new city manager was here, Eric Walsh, and we were talking about this, and I asked the question, how much has the city spent on this? Well, he said none at this point because this is just high-level thinking and there's been no implementation yet. That's true, but how many times have you ever seen city council make a vote that there wasn't some implementation sometime in the future? So just after the election in 2017 and the new council's in and President Trump had pulled the United States out of the Paris Climate Accord, the city council, under the direction of the mayor, passed a resolution embracing the Paris Climate Accord. That was the first step in coming to this.
Okay.
So I tell you, implementation comes at a high cost, so be careful of it.
Thank you. And by the way, the next meeting of the District 9 Neighborhood Alliance will be here next month, and I have invited the city staff to provide a briefing on that climate readiness plan.
I have a quick follow-up.
You want just one question to one person?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So in this room, a month ago, we had a discussion about the same. Electric vehicles for everyone, retrofitting, new construction first, and then all the other buildings. To which one very mature man said, that sounds like socialism. Mr. Courage, the question is for you, to which you replied, there is no free lunch. Can you explain what you mean by that?
I don't remember saying that, but
That's a quote.
yeah, I don't remember that at all. I may have said that. I'd have to kind of have an understanding of what I might have said before that, or the wording. You're telling me what the other person said. I just don't recall. But like I said, this isn't mandating, and I'm not asking it to mandate, and we have not passed this plan. I don't want you to misunderstand what's been said. This has not come to the council for approval. It's in a draft form. It's being redrafted. As a matter of fact, the council has told the mayor, I know several council people, that we don't think it's ready to come forward. So it's being postponed for further consideration after the staff looks at it and takes more input from the community. So, it's not ready for prime time. And like I said, I wouldn't be supporting anything that's going to mandate anything that you need to do that's going to affect your quality of life.
No, we're not having a debate. Next question? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a question for John separately from the other three, but it's all related to the same thing. The question for you, John, and you can, I don't care how it's answered. Are you required to maintain and continue on with your staff that you have? And I ask this question because within the last week, it was shared with me by somebody who witnessed one of your staff members being very disrespectful and confrontational with one of the homeowner leaders on the north side. It was a
I think-
first-hand witness. I'm asking a question, Art.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am. I'm going to get to the question. So my question is, are you required to continue on? And then for the other three, what are 2 or 3 bullet points that you will look for when staffing your staff as far as qualifications?
I will not put that question to the panel.
That's
Next
not-
question?
It's not appropriate to attack somebody in a meeting.
Next question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My question is, Scully talked to us a couple of months ago, and she talked about equality versus equity. Where does all of you guys stand on equality, where every council district gets the same amount of money, versus taking more money for equity? Where do you stand on that?
That's a good question. Patrick, start with you.
Thank you, Bill, for the question. It's an important question, and because there is a fundamental change in the way budgeting was done in the last couple of years, because the equity question came into play, and that equity-based budgeting was utilized. District 9 is what's called a donor district. A donor district meaning that we contribute a larger portion to the city budget than anyone else. And about 25% of the budget comes from District 9. And when the vote was taken to have equity-based budgeting, even more money was taken from District 9. So if District 9 is the economic engine for the city of San Antonio, and we have to do our part. We're part of the city, and we have to take care, help others in other districts and everything. And we're the newer part of the city, but we have to still take care of District 9 because we're going to continue to be an economic engine to help fund city San Antonio. We can't cut off our nose to spite our face. We have huge infrastructure demands, huge public safety demands. We don't have a substation in Stone Oak where we need one. Our response times for public safety of fire and police are way too long, over 20 minutes to respond to a call, and because of the way Stone Oak was designed. Well, in doing that, it's crucial that District 9 maintain more of its and not give away more of its money through equity lens, because the city is 300 years old and there are old parts of the city. At the same time, there has to be a balance. So if that's my question, Bill, is equity versus equality, then we have to fight for District 9 to have that equality, because in an equity-based situation, District 9 loses even more, and we're already contributing 25% to the overall city, because the City Council made a decision to annex in the business district straight up 281. We can't, in the current situation, our safe officers and our police officers can't handle what we have. And they expanded that reach up the corridor of 281, putting more pressure on them. So thank you for the question.
Richard?
I teach martial arts to some of the police guys, and they always complain about that they're short, they can't handle it. He's right, they're late. When we call, I've called personally. I trained security guys how to handle themselves without violence. As far as finance, I like equality for everyone, not one person makes more money because they're more qualified. Equal rights for everyone.
Thank you. I think that's a very fair question. You know, before I was elected to the council, I, like everybody else here, was kind of on the outside looking in. And you have a perspective when you're on the outside looking in. You see things a certain way. Once you are serving the city and you have the opportunity to be talking with staff and looking at finances and things of that nature, you start to learn that there's more to it and a different than what you hear from the outside. So there's a lot of misinformation and uninformed information that gets put out there. For example, District 9 is not the largest taxing district in the city. It's District 1 because it has so many businesses and tourism and all of that. but we are a high taxing district. That's true. We do not have an average police arrival time at a scene, crime scene of 20 minutes. If it's somebody's car that broken into, the average time to get there is 20 minutes. If it's an ongoing crime, a robbery, personal injury, things like that, the average response time is closer to 7, 8 minutes. So, you know, those kinds of things you don't learn about just by reading the newspaper. You have to be on the inside looking at that and studying all the information to know. But let me say this, we do have an older city, and there are a lot of areas in this city that for many years received what was called rough proportionality. You took the city budget and you divided it by 10. And years before that, before we had 10 council districts, you took the city budget and you divided it by what the people who were elected to the council wanted, not even according to district. And so we know, if you drive around the city, there are a lot of areas that need more. I want to let you know that District 9 did not receive less money in the last budget cycle. It received more money. But again, unless you're there looking at the budget, hearing those discussions, understanding how the money is getting spent, as a councilman, some things appear to be different than they really are. So I just want to let you know, I am for helping other areas of this city be lifted up to be as good and have as good a quality of life for the people there as we have here. I've told people from day one, I'm not just a councilman for District 9, although you come first. But as a matter of fact, the decisions we make at City Council affect everybody.
And so in regards to equality versus equity, I think, you know, each one of us has a hand in the success and the future of our city. That being said, we also realize that there are some things that District 9 could benefit from, more parks, potentially an extra police station to help with those long time or response times. And so, you know, I don't think it's a black or white answer. I don't think we have to choose one or the other. I think it's going to end up being a combination of both, realizing that we owe it to our district and the citizens in our district to support what they're asking of the city council, but at the same time realizing that, you know, each one of us has a hand in the success of our city, that we can look at it like this is our neighborhood, this is my portion of town, but in reality I think we need to take a step back and realize that ultimately every one of us has a voice in the success of what goes on downtown in District 1. So choosing between one or the other, it's simply not the case. It's going to be a combination of both of those things.
Thank you. Next question? Yeah.
Yes, I'm Jeff Clay, and I've lived here for 20
Please
years.
turn around so I get more from this part of the room. I'm sorry. Next time I'll do this.
But I have a question. As we know, illegal immigration is a big topic nationally, and we also know that doesn't just affect the border, it also affects us here in San Antonio. Our police force currently does not collect data on crime. How much of it comes from illegal immigrants, or how much of it are people that live here legally? Would you support having our police force gather that data? And also, are you in favor of or against San Antonio being a sanctuary city?
Start with you, Patrick.
San Antonio being what? Sanctuary city.
It's a great question. As I mentioned before, many of the national issues are coming to a local basis. And you might know that and remember that in 2017, the state of Texas passed a bill called SB4 and signed into law by Governor Abbott. And that bill basically said that if you're going to be a sanctuary city in the state of Texas, you're going to lose state funding. And while the city of San Antonio has not officially declared that, we have exposed in different areas of the city tendencies towards being a quote sanctuary city, although not officially. And so I am absolutely opposed to the lawsuit the city has taken on. The city has joined in with MALDEF in a lawsuit against the state of Texas over Senate Bill 4. And that is one of those lawsuits, much like a lawsuit that could come from Chick-fil-A for the violation of religious freedom in the First Amendment. those are the type of actions the city council has decided on the last 2 years. It could cost you a lot more money and cost a lot more tax revenue. So in doing that, we have an obligation. People have a right to migrate, but the country has a right, a duty, and an obligation to protect its borders and to know who's coming in and to help people at the same time. But the right, duty, and obligation to protect our borders and to do first to serve our citizens and residents here is paramount. And in doing that, every time that we have people that come here illegally, it costs us more money. I believe I heard the latest statistic was about 38,000 people came here illegally in January and February, and they suck up city services, they suck up the hospital time, they go in most of the cases, in these cases they go to hospitals, and like this one, and they're utilizing services that the citizens of San Antonio can now no longer, they have to wait in line. So it comes first. Our citizens come first. Our city has no business being involved in being a sanctuary city.
Quite familiar with that. I came from Iran. I got a visa. So then I came here to ELS Language Center in Houston. No, sorry, New York first, then Houston. Then I came to San Antonio College, associate degree in TSA, Business Administration, Master in Kinesiology. I have a daughter who's a doctor in psychology. I guess she wanted to heal me or cure me. And my son is a baseball player for University of Houston. So you have to do the right steps to get the right conclusion. Do the right things, do things right. My teacher taught me that. As far as coming here illegally, border is not the only way they're coming through. I know personally. They're coming through the airport, by the water. They're just coming here because the areas some of these people live is horrible, slum-like, like India. The government is pressing them, so they come here for sort of like what happened to me. I became successful, not financially, don't get any ideas, but there's a lot of opportunity. One thing I love about USA is the university and the libraries. It's beautiful, books everywhere. I love books. My favorite room is library. So you have to do it the right route. If you don't come in the right route with your family, you will pay the consequences. You may get a job for a day or two, then eventually somebody's going to come and knock on your door. That's not a way to live.
Thank you, Richard. Patrick?
First, my turn.
I'm sorry, going the wrong way.
Going the other way.
Come on, Art, wake up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was too busy looking at the clock.
You know, immigration is something that we're all concerned about. But immigration is a federal issue, but it's being pushed down to be a local issue. It's been pushed down to the states, so now the states are starting to formulate different rules and regulations about immigration, and it's been pushed down to the cities. And I think that the federal government needs to take the greater responsibility for managing that. However, I will say, I do not believe and I would not support San Antonio becoming a sanctuary city. And I think that we live together as a community, and we want to make sure that the people who are living here are respecting our laws. And so I think anyone who is arrested, the right that the police have to do is demand they identify themselves. Well, we need to know who they are, and we need to go ahead and keep track of the criminals. And I think that that's how we should do it. But as far as keeping data, I don't think that that is going to help us make us any safer. And it may scare people from letting you know that there's a criminal down the street because you're going to be asking them, oh, are you a citizen? And maybe they are, maybe they aren't. But it'll be more intimidating to law enforcement than it would be helping law enforcement do its job in protecting all of us, I believe. But we are not a sanctuary city, and I wouldn't support us becoming one.
The first part of your question was asking if the police would acquire that data if they were an illegal immigrant or not. To my understanding, when a police officer engages with somebody who's potentially criminal, they ask for that ID that they possess. But I think to answer your question, no, I don't think that type of data would be helpful. And as far as the sanctuary city goes, I don't see San Antonio becoming a sanctuary city.
Trying to go to the other side of the sound.
Looking this way. Somebody had a hand up? Okay.
In an effort to gain what the needs and concerns and issues are of District 9 residents, what public forums are you gentlemen, have you attended recently or plan to attend?
Or would you, as a councilman, would you, the question was how would you engage the public? How have you done it in the past? And I guess how you would do it where you're elected. The constituents of District 9, how would you get involved?
When we're elected?
Yeah.
Or
And what you have been doing
Yeah.
in the past,
Okay.
as well as what you would do as you.
Yep, so, after I put my name on the ballot, a lot of organizations reached out, and obviously they want to talk to who could potentially be their next city councilman, labor unions, environmentalists, social issues. So being able to be available to them, and if not being available to them on that day that they've requested, having us go and attend a forum, following up by going to their monthly meeting, getting a feel for their organization and the issues that they're fighting for and advocating for. You know, I have personally been canvassing the district, and I think nothing will beat the one-on-one conversations that we have, because as much as I could say that my issue is that I'm personally passionate about sprawl or the environment or whatever have you, it's not my voice that should be heard on city council. I don't have an agenda going on city council. My goal is to be your representative, be someone who could echo and let your voice be heard on council. As far as if I was elected on city council, I think that our city could always improve from greater transparency, whether that come in the form of holding more frequent public forums or conversations where we can engage with the constituents of the district. It could be also kind of maybe thinking outside the box a little bit, getting more creative and involving technology where we can do a weekly video that summarizes the decisions that were made, or kind of the agenda that was held at City Hall, the city council meetings. Could be interviewing a small local business, just creative things that engage the community and make us feel like we're more than just the neighborhoods that we live in. I think is important.
Good. Very good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Understanding what people want in the community has been a highlight of my service to you. As I said, when I first started running, I just asked people, what are your concerns? What are your problems? What do you want done at City Hall? Since I've been elected, I've asked people to come together in a lot of different opportunities. I've established a District 9 Advisory Committee. Some of you in this room have attended those meetings where we just sit and talk about what's going on at City Hall. What are the problems and concerns that you see in our community? I've established a District 9 Leadership Council made up of the presidents of the different neighborhood associations. And I've worked to bring them together to talk about what are the specific problems that they have within their neighborhoods. I've worked to go ahead and develop a committee that works with veterans and military families that live in District 9 to help them with concerns that they have and to understand what those concerns are. We've had several forums for veterans in the district. I've also invited people in the community to go with me and visit some of the agencies in this city that the city supports by giving part of your tax dollars to. And we've gone on 4 trips to over 20 different organizations in the city to help educate the people in the community and hear from them what they think of what the city's doing in supporting these organizations. I also introduced something very unique in this city called participatory budgeting, where I found money within the city budget that I could let the people in this community decide how they wanted to spend that money. $1,250,000 in the last cycle, $1 million in this cycle. And many of you know, you have suggested to me projects that you think should be done. We've looked at those, we've priced them, we go back to a committee made up of people like you here in this room to evaluate those, and then we put them out for a public vote so the people in District 9 could vote with technology on what they thought were those issues we should do.
I teach math in some churches to kids after school, number one. Number two, I have a sign in my kitchen that says active kitchen. So working with Alzheimer patients, I think I can help them. Not just help them, cure them and prevent Alzheimer's disease with nutrition. Additive is huge with FDA. I'm going to go after FDA. They're not going to like me very much. Aluminum cans, beer companies, they're all promoting Alzheimer's disease. We don't even know. Underlying is nutrition. You are what you eat. You are what you think. And so that's huge. I want to teach 101 how to cook. Again, 40 years. I was the first one abroad in 1999, 1998. Cafe Persia over here, Blanco and Jackson Killer. Terrible location, gang sign everywhere, but I believed it. You know, again, if you believe in yourself, magic happens. Goethe said that. George Strait came and ate at my restaurant. It was that good. And he was, you know, then the government decided to want to expand the road. There goes my business. You know, there's a name for it. I forgot. So I lost $100,000. So that's what I want to do with my community. There's so much. Again, we can talk about tax, but what I can do is nutrition.
Thank you, Richard. Patrick?
Yeah, thank you for the question. As we saw each other at Citizens on Patrol and getting that accreditation by our local police, our safe officers, is one of the things that I've done, and I encourage each of you to do, and can answer any questions about. One of the great things about Citizens on Patrol is it engages you to your neighbor more, to your neighborhood more, and you build that community within your neighborhood, and you look out for your neighbors. One of the things that as a city grows, we tend to, in many cases, not know our neighbors, and whether it's neighborhood night out, which we frequent, but also to start looking out for your neighbors and have a purpose for doing that. But obviously, my family being a large family, what some would consider, we deal with the public in many different ways, with traditional ISDs, public schools, charter schools that my children attend, and to my wife and her social engagement. But we've been very active in the community and continue to be active in the community, whether it be the San Antonio AM Club and all the Aggies, that is my alma mater, to the Knights of Columbus or my parish. We've been very busy filling out questionnaires. A lot of the organizations that are interested in and are politically involved in this process and want to bring to their constituency answers based on what's important to them. We spend an inordinate amount of time answering those questions, and I thank my staff for helping me do that. There's been several forums there as well, whether visiting with the firemen and police, they have their process as well. The Restaurant Association, the North Chamber, which I was served on the board for numerous years, and other business owners. But block walking and dealing with people one-on-one is the greatest benefit in dealing with it and learning from them and business owners, because those two things combined make District 9 great as a community, as a tight-knit community, and so we'll continue that and expand, and what people that are interested in visiting with us will continue to visit.
And this will be the last question. We wind up the evening with 2 minutes for each candidate. As I'm going to let you have your question just a minute. I'm just going to tell people how we're going to wind it up. So everybody will have a chance to provide their final comments from the panel. But now your question. This will be the last one.
I think that probably the public doesn't realize that this position requires a lot of knowledge, federal level, state level, city level, county level, and all of it is very much entwined. And there's so much that is involved, and so many of these different entities will tell you what you need to do. So I'm asking the councilman, what would you do if you do not agree with something that is put before you that you don't agree to? How would you handle it?
This is to the panel you're asking. You're asking the councilman or the entire panel?
If you have time, yes.
No, okay. We'll do it with the entire panel.
It's a great question, and it can be a very difficult question to solve. So one of the basic things, as I mentioned before in our opening remarks when I ran for this office, is swear in. You swear to uphold the Constitution of Texas, the Constitution of the United States of America. And so if it violates the Constitution of Texas, the Constitution of the United States of America, and the City Council is doing it, I will not be voting for it, and I'll state the reasons why and do that. Part of my plan for doing that is representing what's near and dear to our hearts. We have a city charter to abide by, we have a state constitution, and we have a United States Constitution to abide by. And anytime that it violates that, we have to really take a serious look, because we make a move to do that, whether it be the mandatory paid sick leave or anything else like that, lawsuits can be filed, it can cost taxpayers a lot more money. And in doing that, the next thing is, if I disagree with something that the council's doing, is really comes back to financial sense. Part of my work is bringing financial science to people, our clients that we charge a fee to. And so it's bringing that economic and objective financial science to City Council and asking those questions in a charitable way, the tough questions. Who's going to pay for this? How are we going to fund it? What's going to cost? And many of the other questions here is, what's the long-term impact to our city and to our debt and our ability to continue to operate, to be great at basic city services? And that's what we really need to be focused on, those basic city services, being great at public safety, infrastructure, and providing a way for people to improve their quality of life. Does that answer your question?
Well, yeah. But if someone disagreed with you, that's what I'm saying.
Well, we present our arguments, don't we, in doing that. And so in bringing that objective information there, whether it be financial, whether it be compared to the city charter or the state constitution, United States Constitution, we have to be able to bring that. And that's why I say it was one of the most frightening days of being down at City Council in August of last year when they passed the mandatory paid sick leave, violating the Texas Constitution.
Unfortunately, you can't challenge him to a duel anymore.
One of my prayer in the morning is to look at all beings with eyes of compassion. And listening is a skill. You gotta, just like training someone, maybe he doesn't like to do push-ups or pull-ups. So you listen to them, so you design the program that he loves, because that love keeps him motivated. So that works at the city level, at the state level, at the government level, at the presidential level. I've worked with them. You have to work with people if you want to get result. If I'm a dictator, no, I said to do pull-up, push-up, maybe has a shoulder injury. You have to understand to be understood. Dr. Covey said that.
John?
Yes. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And so I stand by what I believe is right for our district and our city. I certainly respect the federal government, the Constitution, the laws, the state regulations and laws. I was a teacher for 27 years, and for more than 20 of those years, I taught government and history. I understand how they work. I understand how they should work together. However, we don't always agree, and we haven't always agreed at City Hall. There were numerous issues that came up where I was in the minority, and issues were passed that I didn't support. For example, when we decided to go ahead and close down Alamo Plaza and move the Cenotaph, I did not support that, but I was in the minority. When we talk about we're redoing City Hall, we're spending $38 million to do that. I did not support the vote to go ahead and do that without it going to the citizens to have them have a vote in it. I was in the minority. You know, there's a lot of things. The city manager's bonus that we talked about a year and a half ago, I did not support that. The rest of my council members did. There are issues that have come up when I'm not going to agree, and I may be in the minority. But that doesn't mean I don't stand for what I believe in, or stand for what you believe in. However, we may not always agree. And when we disagree, when I stand for something and I'm going to vote for something that you may not agree with, I'm going to tell you why. And I'm going to hope that you'll understand from that explanation where I'm coming from. Because I don't stand alone. I ask my staff, I ask the city staff, I ask you in the community, and I use my own conscience to decide what is the reasonable and responsible decision to make on behalf of this community. I think it served me well in the first 2 years. I hope it'll serve me again in the next 2.
So to answer your question, I think it's important to obviously abide by the city, state, and federal level, and the laws that they, have for the decisions that we make. I think one of the things that I can pride myself on in my campaign, win or lose on May 4th, is that I don't take and accept money from special interest groups or PACs or corporations, which means that if elected as city councilman, it's just me and you and all of you. And I think that's important, and that relationship stay pure, and it doesn't get tainted by the motives and interests that all these outside groups would have, who will act in a selfish way, rather than thinking long-term what's best for our communities, our city, and ultimately the future of San Antonio. There will be disagreements. I know in my life I've had many disagreements with family members, co-workers, and what have you, but I think it's all about engaging and having the tough conversations, because local politics, as I'm starting to realize it, it's not all glitz and glam. I think there's a lot of polarizing aspects. And I think, ultimately for us to be successful, not only as a city, but as a country, we need to come together, respect one another, in order to address the challenges that are ahead.
Thank you. All right. That said, what we're going to do now is give everyone 2 minutes, the panel, to summarize their positions, respond to anything that they've heard, and I have to do it very quickly to do it in 2 minutes. But that said, I have said that when we started, we start at this end. We'll start with Patrick, winding things up. So Patrick.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time and attention. I really appreciate each of you coming out to be here because you're concerned about your neighborhood, your quality of life. And when we talk about plans like the Climate Action Adaptation Plan that could require implementation and the changing of your lifestyle, this does not lead to a smaller government or less taxes or more freedom. And so in listening to neighborhoods, it's crucial that we take into account the things that city council are doing, not only on a conceptual basis or a high-level thinking basis, what they would call, but also a practical basis. It's time for our city to really get back to basics. And what I mean that is back to basics in infrastructure, in public safety, and being great at those things, because that's what impacts your quality of life. And anytime the government takes a step towards mitigation, towards climate action, towards a sanctuary city, and not taking the rule of law seriously, not living up to not having a transparent government, that impacts your quality of life. That impacts your pocketbook. Every time we take a step and we vote for mandatory paid sick leave, or we vote for to remove a restaurant from being considered in the airport because of the owner's religious views. These are things that lead to potential litigation, and litigation that costs taxpayers money. When the city manager, the city has been in negotiating, really not negotiating with fire for the last 4 years. That costs millions of dollars to taxpayers. Each of these things come back to impact city budget. And when we come back to city budget, I want to remind you that in this chart right here, that we're at $5.6 billion in debt already as a city. It's time to really take into account how we go about making decisions that impact citizens long-term and taxpayers. So in wrapping that up, my stance is for us to have a smaller government, that we don't take on climate action plan that reserve lower taxes and more freedom for you so you have a higher quality of life. You can find out more information at votepatriot.org. Thank you for your time. Richard?
Thank you very much. I'm honored and I'm very excited to be here. This is a dream for me, really. I'm in heaven. Mahatma Gandhi said, if you want to get to know yourself, you have to serve your community. And I really want to serve my community one-on-one. If I see someone has allergy and HIV, I'll go out of my way to help them. Yeah, you gotta drink apple cider vinegar, put a little cayenne in there. Just, I was born that way, as Lady Gaga said. And I died for that. And I love to help. And I think it's the spirituality of this country is zero, thanks to Google. We don't talk anymore. We don't cook anymore. I like to bring the kitchen back home. As one of my clients, Dr. Norma said, I go to some of these wealthiest people home, they don't know where their spatula is. It goes, they don't use their kitchen. They don't know what a spatula is. But they have, $10,000 suits on. It doesn't make sense to me the way the sauce gets on it. So at the very, very elementary level, we're missing all that. I think cooking is love, sharing. When you cook, I love to share. You feel more, taste better. Not so much, again, tax expansion. That's just all gonna come. It's just a natural law of expansion of Earth. But the things that I want to do is bring the law back home. All right, I nailed it.
Thank you. I know that as we've talked today, we've talked about things that have been happening in the city. We've talked about things that may have occurred over the last couple of years while I've been serving you. But I want to talk about what I want to do going forward, because I think that's what's important. And what I mean by that is there are some projects that I've undertaken or that have been begun that I want to see finished. For example, we're building a brand new senior center. And I'm very proud of that senior center. And some of you are on that committee that we've put together to make sure we build a great community center, senior center for our seniors. The only one, the first one we've had in District 9. I want to see a brand new park that we're developing become the finest park in District 9. And again, we've got a great amount of people who are working on that. Art's leading part of that charge. And I want to make sure that goes through well. I want to make sure we eliminate some of the traffic problems that we have. I want to make sure that 281 is finished and it's finished well and it's finished quickly. I want to make sure we have better interconnection between many roads in the north side of San Antonio that are not connected. You can take Hebner, that should go to 281, or you should have Stone Oak that should connect to Gold Canyon, or you should, there's just several other roads that were partially built, not completed, that are making it difficult just to move around the district. Also, I've put forward a proposal for a tax cut for the people in San Antonio. It's a homestead exemption. We're the only city, major city in Texas that does not have a homestead exemption. And I've authored that movement along with Councilman Perry. And we're working to try and give tax relief to people in this district. There are other things I'm working on that I want to complete. And I just hope that you believe that I've done the kind of job you've expected. You might have had some bumps in the road, but hopefully you believe I'm the person to continue. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Nicholas.
So I have cards, business cards. I can put them out there if you're wanting to contact me, or go on my website to see some more of the issues and see my vision for San Antonio. But I think more importantly, the message that I want to leave you on, or leave you with, is this: that you have an important decision to make on May 4th, and it's not just the name that you see on the ballot. You know, as you review, and I encourage you to not only look into myself, but every single one of these fine gentlemen up here, that you look at the campaigns, or not the campaigns, but you look at the corporations, the special interest groups, the associations who have endorsed them, and that who they are affiliated with as well. I think it's important to get the full picture, the whole story, because while you can hear from the person themselves, oftentimes you're voting for not just that candidate, you're voting for the people who fund their campaign as well. So I think that's very important to know and to understand and research, and I hope that all of you partake in that. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think I speak for all of us. I want to thank the candidates. I think that they gave us a very interesting evening, and we got to know them a little bit better. Found out a lot of things, and I certainly enjoyed the evening and hearing from all four of them. And I want to thank everybody that attended. I've got a couple of quick announcements. We have this area until 9 o'clock, so there's a little bit of time for you to talk to your candidates. I did not buy any food. I'm sorry. I should have had
I wish.
All right.
I can make this right here.
The next meeting of this alliance will be held here on April 24th, 7 p.m. The subject will be the San Antonio Climate Ready Plan that we have discussed in detail. So I've asked city staff to present that plan, and it will be open for discussion. There's a public meeting at the Shrine Auditorium, 901 North Loop 1604, at 5 p.m. tomorrow night, regarding the plans for the Blanco 1604 intersection. Those of you that live out on Wilderness Oak or out on Blanco, this is going to be a key thing that's going to be tied up for the next 5 years. The meeting is from 5 to 7 p.m. The presentation will start at 6. Early voting for this election that we're talking about is on May 4th. We'll start on the 22nd of April. So if you're not registered, you need, I think tomorrow is the last day for registration. Let's see. The Senior Center, there's going to be the second public meeting for the District 9 Senior Center on Thursday, April 4th, 6:30 to 8:30 at the Wayside Chapel. That's on Evans Road, just down from the, or just up from Barbara Bush Middle School. Let's see.
You said a couple of announcements.
Yep. And there's going to be a mayoral candidate forum on April 8th, Monday, April 8th at 6:30 p.m. Hosted by our sister organization, NOD, which is basically the District 8 Alliance at Harbor Park Ecology Center. That said, thank you for coming.
This year for all. Yeah.